Another tweak I'm going to do, which will tie in nicely with the widebody, is this. Big bad boy carbon fibre rear wing. It's going to look pretty aggressive. It's going to help downforce and grip on the rear. I've always sort of felt that the car's a little bit unstable at high speed, so I'm quite keen to try this and see if it helps. And how we're going to mount it, it's not going to be mounted to the boot lid, it's going to be chassis mounted. So I've got some of these laser cut up, so I drew these up, and so these will mount to the chassis down below, into the chassis rails. So we've got a square cut here obviously from the laser, which is what you'd expect, but I think a way of tidying these up really nicely is going to put a radius on all these edges. So I've got this router bit here which will hopefully put a nice radius on all of these surfaces and make it all nice. I've done a couple of test runs here to get the height of the cutter right. So you can see here that I've gone a little bit deep and it's taken a little step there, which I don't want. And then I played around with it and got the right height. So it's just a really nice radius just here. It's going to make a hell of a mess, this job. So this first upright's all done. Pretty happy with that. It gives it far more of a flowing 3D kind of effect, which I really like. I've made an absolute mess everywhere. Top tip if you're doing this job, don't wear jandals. It gets caught in your toes between the jandals and the feet, and it's not very nice. Anyway, so it's one done. The big question is now, do I coat it or do I keep it raw aluminium? That's something I'll have to sleep on. See the difference between the routed one and the non-routed one. One of those small details on a car that I feel makes a big difference. In between layers of bog, I've been working on this wing mount. So I've made these plates here, so this one here and this one here. These look pretty simple, but they're actually very difficult. So this is a compound curve on the fiberglass wing here, and all of these bolt spacings are completely random, so there's no pattern to them. So I've just got to individually measure each one relative to each other holes and mark them out, and then conform this plate with a hammer to the compound curve, which has actually worked out pretty well. And then to make matters worse, the sides aren't even mirrored, so I just needed to start again from scratch to do that other side. So be it. These will get a bit of a tidy up later on. And then what I've done here is I've used this central bar here as a wee jig. So what that does is it squares up these plates here, gets them on the right orientation relative to each other and parallel. So what we're going to do next is give these a clean up, get them positioned exactly where we want, put a few tacks on here and bolt them up, unbolt them, take them off and fully weld them. It's a bit of I'm not really sure how this is going to go, so I want to tack these on there while it's on the wing, so it might get a little melty underneath, but if we want these sitting in the right place, I can't think of any other way of doing it, unfortunately. the wings are roughly mounted up here where it'll be. So when I design these uprights, I think I might have got a bit carried away. She's fairly ridiculous. So it's pretty cool, but I think for this car it's just going to be too much. Fortunately with these uprights, they're pretty easy to shorten. So I've just got these mounting bolts here, but I can easily lower that. And with these all here, I'll just move these along and drill some more in here somewhere, and that'll shift that in because it does stick out pretty far. Obviously there's a bumper to go back on as well. Yeah. She's a bit dark. Yeah, looking pretty sick. Yeah. Today we're at a new event for me. We've got the Ashburton Street Sprints. We've got our Toyota Celica GT4 here with flash new wide body. It's looking pretty sick. Hopefully it goes good. Got Mr. Jason here helping out. Thanks, mate. Good. Big thanks to Scott Johnson, gasket fucker, for giving me a hand with the body kit. It was very much a last minute thing, so few late nights, but got there in the end. It's a beautiful day here in Ashburton. It's about an hour south of Christchurch, for those that don't know. We've got a pretty big field and a lot of very cool, very fast cars here today, so it should be a pretty sweet event. So we can see here, this is a wide fender, so this is about 40mm wider than the factory ST185 wide body. All we've done here is take a mould of the original wide body bumper, take a section of the mould and essentially attach it as an over fender. You can see here we've got a bit of a gap there, and this sort of comes into the mud flap. I think we may want to lift it up. The gap's a bit tight there, so there's a bit of fine tuning to do. And at the back here, we've made a custom buck and taken fiberglass moulds, and so this is about 40mm wider than the factory guard to fit these big boy 17x9 wheels and tyres. So hopefully she grips up. So today's not gone well. So what happened here, so most of the time the wheel has 5 wheel nuts holding it onto the hub. On this occasion it had 2. Well, not so much the wheel, but the spacer behind the wheel had 2 nuts holding it on because I forgot to put the other 3 on. And then breaking into a corner, wheel fell off, snapped the 2 studs, and then it ploughed into the hay bale. So she's done a bit of damage, and that's the event done for me. Nothing real major, just a lot of minor damage. So the front bit of this chassis is all bent, but it's pretty fucked. Both guards are pretty buggered. Headlights buggered. Chassis holding the lower arm mount is a bit bent. The brake rotor, which after the wheel fell off, dragged on the ground, so it's now not a completely round rotor. So there's a bit of work here involved in fixing this up. Such is life. Time to go to the pub. Right, so in between installing the rear wing and the wide body kit, I crashed the car. The front got all damaged, so I've had to rebuild the front. So new bumper, new guards, new headlights, do a bit of chassis straightening here and there, a bunch of other little bits, broken windscreen and things like that. Anyway, and so it gives me the opportunity to change some things on the front. So obviously we've got a big wing on the back, and we need to balance that out, so we want something on the front too. So we're going to put a splitter on it, and you can't just bolt a splitter to your crudely mounted fiberglass bumper. That's not going to stay on there long. So I've redone the whole structure at the front here and added a bit of semi-crash protection. So beforehand the bumper was effectively held on with a factory bar which runs along the top here and has some little fiberglass things which comes up and over it and bolts down to it. So I crashed that bar and I don't have a spare one. And on top of this bar there's like a fake carbon fibre plastic thing which goes between the bumper and the bonnet. I also don't have another one of those. So what I've done is I've made this frame here which make it easier to see while we're in here. So there's, sorry the lighting's not very good. There's a bar which goes inside the bumper here, another bar which basically takes the place of the original one, and on the end there's these two plates here. So these serve several purposes. So these bolt into the chassis rails just here, and they mount this bar here, and they've got these mounts down here which will mount the splitter. As well as that, there's these little posts here which will hold the splitter stays on, and so that triangulates everything and makes it all hopefully nice and rigid. And then it also ties back here to the chassis with this bolt here, and with a bit of triangulation in there to add a bit of further strength and stiffness. As well as that, I've had to redo the power steering cooler. The old one got pretty munched, so these brackets will serve several purposes. One, it locates this inner wheel well liner thing which basically stops all the stones ruining the guards. It mounts the power steering cooler and will also mount the splitter. And some aluminium stays here. A lot of people use wire and rose joints and stuff. I personally think that's overcomplicated. I'm still learning about splitters, so maybe this won't work, but we'll find out. The idea behind this is it's strong in tension, but it's weak in compression. So if I whack the bottom of it, hitting something, it'll bend and shouldn't break. But will hopefully handle the aero loads and should be strong in tension. I think overall it's looking like a pretty menacing hill climb spec car. When you tie that into the wide body and the rear wing, I think it looks pretty bloody awesome. Thanks for watching this video, hope you enjoyed it. The next stage in this is to go and test it out at the next event, which is Auckland Rally Sprint. See you then.